Hi, welcome to this DCP Word tutorial. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be giving you a beginner's guide to using layers in GIMP 2.10. Okay, let's go ahead and open up this folder on my desktop. Inside this folder, I have a subfolder with various images I've downloaded from either the Pexels website or Pixabay. I'll put links to all of these images in the YouTube description so you can follow along. Let's just quickly take a look at the images. We've got these people on this jet ski. We've got this nice little background image. We've got this surfer guy. We've got this seagull. We have this lady chilling out on the beach, and then we've got this beach ball. So we're going to take all of these images and combine them into a single image, and we're going to use layers to achieve that goal. Okay, let's go ahead and open up GIMP software. Here we go. And we're going to go to File, New. And you can set the width and the height of the image however you like, but I'm going to be setting it to 1920 by 1080, so it's the same size as my desktop background. And I want to set the resolution to 72 dpi here, and we're going to fill with transparency here. We'll click OK. So we've basically got a blank canvas, right? Let's go ahead and find those images, and we're going to drag in the background first. So this is what I consider to be the background. So let's drag that into GIMP first, and we can see there's a layer that's been created here, right? So let's just go ahead and click on this bottom layer. It's called background at the moment. Let's just click on this, where is it? This tool here to delete it. And we just want to name this background. So it's worth starting to label your layers so that you understand what they are when you come back and look at them later. Before we do anything else, let's just make sure we save our work. So let's go to my desktop here. Always save your work. And we will call this, let's just call this layers-01. Okay, we want to resize this first image, so let's click on the first layer. Let's go over to the tool here, and we're going to left click and select scale, or you can press Shift and S and then click on the picture. I'm going to hold down the control key and use my mouse wheel to zoom out, right, so I can see the full size of the image. And there's an opacity tool here. Normally it's set to 100% and you can't really see the canvas in the background, so we just want to reduce the opacity so that we can see these checkered boxes. So when we grab this handle and start to resize, we don't go too far. We just want to be on the outside edge, right, just somewhere around here should be pretty good, something like this. And we'll go ahead and click scale. So now we can see the image has been scaled. Let's hold down the control key and the mouse wheel and we'll zoom back in here. And we've got to decide, you know, do we want to see more sky or do we want to see more sand? Let's go ahead and click on the move tool, and then we can click on the picture itself and then hold down the shift key and use the arrow keys on your keyboard. So we can either see more beach here like this, or we can see more of the sky and less of the beach. But I think we want to kind of be somewhere in the middle. I kind of want the horizon to be like almost in the middle of the picture here. Somewhere around here should be pretty good, something like this. So that's really our first understanding of layers, right? So what have we done? We've moved the image into GIMP and we've resized that layer. Remember, we're resizing the layer, the image on the layer, and then we've repositioned that image within this layer. So one layer is really like our background. So think about it, when we create layers here in this section here, we're going to be stacking images on top of each other. This is why we labeled it the background, because it's going to be sitting at the very bottom of our layer stack. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is find the next image we want to bring into this picture, and I think this bird one is a nice example to cut around quite quickly, and then we'll use this within GIMP as well, right? So there's a couple of ways to do this. I'm kind of more inclined to go to File, Open, and open it as an independent image, right? So if we go to File, Open, and go into our images, and we just need to know what it was called. In fact, we can click here and we can see a preview of the image over on this side, right? So we can find out which one was the bird picture. This is the bird picture, and I'm going to open it up as a separate image in GIMP. So you can see there's two tabs now, right? And the reason why I open it in a separate tab is I want to work with this image in a separate tab and then move that content into our original image over here, right? The one that we're working on. So in this tab here, we want to cut around this picture. There's a couple of ways to do that. This image is quite good because it has a lot of contrast between the foreground and the background. So what we can do is use, there's a few different tools here, but we might use the Foreground Select Tool for this job. So what we're going to do is just left click here, and we're just going to draw a shape around this seagull picture, right? Try and get close to the picture, but you don't have to get like really close. Something like this should be pretty good. And we're just going to join these dots all the way around the picture like this, just like this. And we want to close it at the end, right? Like here, close it, and then hit the enter key. and that will create a selection. So really what we're telling GIMP is everything that is dark blue we want to ignore, so completely ignore that. We're not interested in any of that. And now we need to tell GIMP, you know, what is it exactly we want to select from this picture, a bit more of an accurate selection. So I'm going to click on the, let's just see, let's press Ctrl Z. So I'm going to click on this top swatch here, and I want to pick a color that really contrasts against this blue color or the white. So I'm going to go for like a red, a really strong red color, something red, yeah? And just so you can just click on this handle in here, go right to the top, and then use your mouse and then go right to the top corner. You have a red color, and we'll click OK. So when we draw on this bird, this picture, we can see there's strong contrast between the red, and it just makes our selection easier to understand. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z, and I'm going to move quite close to, let's say, this wing down here. I'm going to hold down the Control key and move towards this wing. And I just want to reduce the size of this brush. So the stroke width here, I'm just going to reduce it a little bit. I'm just going to draw around the edge here, right? So this all takes a bit of time. Now in other videos, people might just speed through this, but I prefer to show you exactly what's going on. And if we ever make any mistakes or there's problems, I want you to see those mistakes and see those problems. In fact, what we could do is zoom out a little bit here, right? Let's just zoom out a little bit. We can make our stroke a little bit bigger, and we could do this a little bit quicker. When you've done like a section like this, right? Let's say you've done this much of the bird, this part of the wing. Let go of your mouse button. Letting go of your mouse button is your best friend. The reason why is if you do something like this and go off of the image, but you've let go of the mouse button on the previous step, you can just press Ctrl Z to undo that one element. But if you go and draw loads of the content, let's say you do all of this and then you go off like this, and you didn't let go of the mouse button during that process, when you press Ctrl Z, it will undo that whole step. So you always let go of the mouse button every so often so that you can save the steps, and in that way, if you make a mistake, which is inevitable unfortunately, you can easily undo it afterwards, right? So I'll do this part here like this. In essence, what we're telling GIMP here is, you know, what is it we want to select from this image? Give me as much accurate information as possible. So we try and get close to this edge here, and we'll get this face in here, the bird's head here, like this. Right, all of this body we want, and we want to do like all down here. And if we put effort into this, we should end up with a better selection. It's when you rush this job here, and you just not pay too much attention, then you know, the selection won't be as good, but it should be pretty good because we're going to zoom this image out anyway. So if there's any sort of imperfections, we won't really see them that much. But if we wanted to use this image quite close up, then it would be worth making the best selection possible to do this job. Now obviously in Photoshop, this is a doddle. You can do this like in a couple of seconds, but in GIMP it takes a bit more time. The difference is you pay for Photoshop, and with GIMP it's all free. So, you know, what can I say? Let's just do this here. Let's get this wing in here, and we're gonna kind of tidy this bit up at the end afterwards because it looks a little bit tricky. So let's just do this wing here quickly. See, I'm not going right to the edge, but quite close. Right, something like this. So I might have ballsed it up a little bit there, but it should be okay. And then we'll just select this here, this whole wing. Let's just make sure you don't want to go outside of the wing, yeah? So just make sure you stay inside. And let's just do this part here. Let's just move this a bit quicker. Let's just do this here. Sometimes it's worth just quickly selecting the bulk of it and then going around and refining the edges afterwards, right? So we've kind of selected most of it. Let's go into this wing here at the bottom. Let's try and get as close to that edge as possible. And remember, Control Z will undo and Control Y will redo. So those are your two best friends for this job. And I want to make this, what is this called? This brush a little bit smaller, so I can go in and kind of do these feathers here. Like, I think It's a little bit confusing, this bit. Let's see. Let's just see if we can get away with this like this. I think it'll be okay. And then let's just make it a bit bigger, and we'll just fill in this part here. I think that will be okay. We'll see. We shall see. Let's just do this bit here as well. And then we just want to sort out that other wing on the opposite side over here. And then we're almost done with this selection. So I think that should be pretty good. I think we're okay. I think we're okay. Yeah, I think we're going to be okay. So once you've done that selection, you can click the select tool here. Right? You can click preview mask. Okay, let's go ahead and click the select tool here, select here. And it's going to do some computing, and it's going to do a selection around this image for us, right? So let's just wait for that to happen. It will take a few seconds for it to do that calculation. Okay, so we can see that the selection is now done. If you see, we've got this trace around the edge, and it looks pretty good. It's done a pretty good job. So what we want to do is go to edit, copy, and then we'll create a new layer here, and it will be a transparent layer. Click OK, and then go to edit and paste, and then click this green anchor icon, and then we can hide this original layer, and now we've got a nice cutout of this bird. We can click here and then select this layer, and then press Ctrl C to copy, or go to edit, copy, go back to our original picture. Let's create a new layer and make it transparent. Click OK, and then press Ctrl V to paste, and then click the anchor icon, and then we're going to zoom right out, or we're going to click on we'll click on this top layer. Let's label it first so we know what it is. Let's just call it bird, and then we'll press either Shift and S or the scale tool here, scale, and we'll click on the bird, and we're going to scale it. And let's just zoom into our canvas. Hold down the Control key and use your mouse wheel to zoom in. And you can click on this little box in the corner, or sorry, in the middle here, to move the bird, and you can then zoom in and out using this one, right, the tool here. So let's just zoom out and see roughly where do we want to position over here. I think kind of around here is pretty good, somewhere around here, and maybe we can make, you can make it really small if you want, or you can make it a bit bigger. Maybe we'll make it about this sort of size, and click scale, and then you can see the bird over here flying at the top. Right, you can hide that layer and show it. You can even right click and duplicate it. Duplicate. So now we've got two birds, but they're sitting directly on top of each other. So what we'll do is go to the tool here, and we'll click on flip, and we'll click on the bird, and it's going to flip it the other way around, I believe. Let's click on the move tool, and let's just see. This one's now flying sort of in this downwards direction. Can you see? But it's all upside down and all a bit crazy. So let's press Ctrl Z, and then press Ctrl Z, and then press Ctrl Z to undo, and then we'll click on the flip tool, and we're going to flip it horizontal, not vertical, and we'll flip it. Now it's flying the other direction, and we can click back on the let's click back on the scale tool. Let's click on that little image, and let's just shrink it down a little bit, and click scale, and then we'll click here again and click rotate this time. Rotate, click on that picture. We're going to rotate it so it's not exactly the same as that other bird, right? And then click rotate, and just click back on the move tool, and we can move this bird over here somewhere. And in fact, we can probably go to let's see, let's have a look. Let's go to, I want to change its color. Let's go to color. Let's go to hue and saturation, and we're going to do a slight tweak to the color. So we can change its hue, or we can change its saturation, right? So we're just going to change the color slightly, just change the hue just a little amount. So there's some differences between the colors of these two birds. We don't want them to be exactly the same, right? You can lighten it or darken it a bit as well, just to change the color, right? And you can change the saturation. Just tweak these settings slightly, just so that when we zoom back out, they're not looking exactly the same. And you can click on the move tool, and we can move it over here if you want. Maybe over here, just behind this tree. or coming from this sort of tree somewhere around here, then you can just go ahead and duplicate this bird and make many copies and place them all over your scene. So really we've got three layers now. We've got the background layer, we've got this bird in the center, and then we've got this bird here. So maybe we'll call this bird, let's call this bird left, and this one we should label this layer bird maybe center, something like that, right? It's up to you how you label these layers, but try and label them. Let's go to File, Save. So far we've got the background, we've resized it, and we've got two birds in here, and we've got a few other images to work with. Now with this bird here, you put a lot of effort into cutting around it, right? It would make sense that you save this as a GIMP file, because if you ever want to come back in and copy that layer and move it to a different project, you don't want to have to go around and cut around this. And the one that we've got in here, we've resized it and we've done stuff to it. So it's better to save this as original file because it's quite high res and you've put effort into it, so you might as well save it. Let's go to File, Save As, and we're going to save it as a GIMP file, original GIMP file, and we're going to call this, let's just call this bird cutout, yeah, -01. And we'll save it. Now if we ever want to copy that bird again, we can just open up this GIMP file for it, and we can copy this and move it into a different project later. But for now we can close it. We don't need it right now because we've used it. Let's go to File, Save. Okay, so we've added the bird pictures into this artwork so far, and let's go back to our images and think about what next image we want to use. And I think we're going to take this surfer guy and we're going to add him to the content. So let's go to File, Open, and we'll open up the surfer dude. Let's go to Images and we'll find him here and we'll click Open. And we want to cut around this picture as well. So let's hold down the Control key and then zoom in using our mouse wheel, and we can middle mouse click to pan, right? And we want to try and get as close as possible to this guy. And then we're going to use a different selection tool. I think this one we will use the, let's go to, let's use the free select tool, right? So we'll click free select here, and we're just going to draw a little dot around the picture. So just try and get as close and as accurate as possible, like this. And I'm just going to draw these little dots, and we're just going to trace around the picture. And there's different ways to do the selection. You could use the Foreground Select Tool again, but this is just another example of a different tool that we can use. I'm going to try and show you as many different tools as possible. And if you want to be more accurate, you know, I'm not being entirely accurate here, you can zoom in a bit more and get in a bit more close. I'm not going to worry about this guy's hair too much, so I'm just going to kind of cut around his hair like this, something like this. And this image is going to be way in the background, so it's not going to matter too much if this selection isn't perfect. Hold down the middle mouse button to pan across, and then you can just pan across, and we'll just cut around this picture like this. And spend as much time as you like on something like this. The more time you spend, the better the selection will be, right? So we will just do a rough selection for now, and normally I'll spend a bit more time going around this picture, to be fair, but for now I think basic selection, just showing you how to use this particular tool, will help and benefit us to learn GIMP a bit more. And like I said, there's more than one way to do this, but I just want to show you like various different ways of doing selections rather than just using one particular tool. And after we've done this selection, we could go in and refine it later once the selection is done, but for now I think we'll just do a rough selection like this, and we'll use that in our artwork. So just keep going around the edge here. Takes a bit of time, like everything in life, it's never that fast. And I could speed all of this up, right? I could do one of them things that you see on these YouTube channels and videos where they just speed up the selection, but I think that doesn't really teach people much, right? It's better to show the whole process, and then we can have a bit more accuracy, and if we make mistakes, then we can learn from those mistakes as well. Sometimes I make mistakes, and then I like to show, you know, how to fix those mistakes. So I'm just going along the bottom of this surfboard here, like this, something like this, and we'll get to the very end, and then we want to join our selection here. Join the selection. Now that selection has been created, we zoom out, we can see the little marching ants around the edge here, right? You can see them. And we want to go to create a new layer. So let's create a new layer first. Click here, and we want it to be transparent. Click OK. We'll select that layer, and then we'll go to Edit, Copy, and then we'll go to Edit and Paste, and make sure this layer is selected here. Edit, Paste, here, Paste. And then if we use the anchor icon, we can anchor it down, and we can hide this background. And something didn't work there, right? Can you see? Look, we don't see anything here. We should see that guy selected. So let's press Ctrl Z and press Ctrl Z again, and just keep pressing it until we see our selection again, right? So let's find out what's going on here. Let's try and let's click on this layer first, this bottom layer. Right, let's go to Edit, Copy, then click on the top layer, and then go to Edit, Paste. And let's try that, see if that makes a difference. And there we go, right? But we've still got to kind of select around inside here. The reason why it didn't work last time is because we selected the bottom layer, copied and pasted it, and that's not our selection. We had to make sure we selected, we selected the top layer, so we'll make sure we select the bottom layer first, then copy, paste, and then paste it into this top layer here. Let's zoom in, and we want to get rid of this white spacing around here. You can see like there's some imperfections in here. We could go in and clean them up. I might show you a little bit of that in a moment, but let's try and just cut around here. So we can use the same tool, this lasso tool, and we'll just go in here. Control, yeah, let's just go in here. Let's zoom in a little bit more, right? And we just go around here and select around this edge here. And we'll be done soon. Hopefully I'm not boring you too much. If you know what, you can always set the speed of YouTube to ×2, and you can speed through this. I will put chapters in the actual YouTube description, so if you want to just skip to a certain part, then you can skip to a certain part. If you want to adjust it, you can actually grab these handles and adjust it slightly. So if you think there's something ain't quite right, you can just click these little handles and adjust it accordingly, right? Like this, like this. We can just drag this one in a little bit. You can just adjust it, and we really want to cut this out, right? So let's just try let's just try Edit, Cut for now, and then there's our cutout, right? And now we want to go to Select and None, because we don't want to select anything out inside of there. We want to remove the selection. So to tidy up this edge, you can see like this is really, that's kind of like the shine off of the, I think that's more of the lighting on his arm, but we could smooth that out a little bit by using the eraser tool. We can increase the size, and let's just see, it's a bit hard to see, but that's like the size of the brush. So let's click on this top layer, and let's see if we can just kind of get rid of that a little bit, this white here. It looks a little bit iffy. You want to reduce the hardness and the spacing and the force, right? Bring them down, just to get rid of that a little bit. And that's how you go around the edge in here and just kind of tidy it up a little bit, clean it up. We'll do a little bit here. Let's just try and get a little bit of this cleaned up. And it won't matter too much anyway, because our image is going to be in the background, and these sort of things, you won't really see them that much. So let's see, let's zoom out. I think I'm happy with that for now. We'll middle mouse click so we can pan across. Let's save this guy first. Let's save as, and we'll call this one surfer, right? SUR surfer -01. So we've got the original file now. We can save it, and then we'll click on the layer here, and we'll press Ctrl C to copy, and we'll go back to our original image. We've got the bird here, top left. Let's create a new layer and click transparency and click OK, and we'll press Ctrl V to paste. Now the surfer guy's here. Let's anchor that layer down, and then we'll call this guy surfer, and we obviously want to resize him. He's way too big, right? We want him in the background somewhere. So let's go and click on the resize tool or scale. Let's click on this picture. Let's just drag it towards the center here, and let's see, let's hold down the control key and zoom out. You can see the picture is very big, right? So really probably let's click reset, And let's close this. Really, let's click the move tool and let's explain. So the picture is really this size here, but the actual copied layer is massive. Can you see? It's like all this yellow thing here is a bit overkill. So what we should be able to do is go to the rectangle select tool and make sure we click on the surfer and then draw a rectangle around him, yeah, just around him, something like this. And then we should be able to go to layer, let's see, crop to selection, yeah, crop to selection. And now our layer is only the size of this selection. So now when we go to select none and then go to the scale tool here and click on it, our handle's a bit more sensible, right? They're sitting around the image rather than all the way up here somewhere, because the original layer was very tall. So that's how we do that. Let's shrink him down and let's see where we're going to place him. Maybe, like, obviously it can't be that big. Let's see, let's have him like, you know, the closer he is to the foreground, the larger it will be, right? So let's say if we move him, let's have him about that big, maybe around here. You got to think about perspective, right? This is maybe a rock quite close, so how big would this guy be compared to this rock? He'll be much bigger than that, right? He'll probably be about this sort of size, I reckon. Something like this seems to be a bit more sensible, right? And then we'll click scale and we can see, does that really look okay? I mean, to be fair, if you know, he would never be that far down in the water, would he? Because obviously this is just the sand here, so we need to move him into the background. It looks a bit silly having it there. So let's take the move tool, let's just drag him up to here, and he's a bit further back, so we need to resize him to make him a bit smaller. Then it will look a bit more sensible. Let's size him down to about here, I think, something like that. And you can play around, right? It's down to you how you want to do that. And we're quite fortunate because when we cut around that picture, if we click on the background, it kind of gives us a bit of understanding of what's going on here. So we can see the surfer guy there, and the cutout was pretty good. You know, you can't really see those imperfections really. But if you zoom right in, you'll see it. And the way that we cut the board at the bottom, it kind of works well with the wave. So I think that is kind of done. That's kind of job done there. I'm quite happy with that in terms of that part of the image. You could click on that picture, the surfer guy. You could go to color, hue and saturation, and then we could kind of lighten him up a little bit. He looks a little bit dark there. So let's just lighten him up a little bit, increase the saturation tiny bit, and the hue we normally leave that at default. We don't really need to adjust the hue, just leave that at sort of around 0 here, something like this, and click OK. And then let's go to File, Save. Remember to save your work as you go along. So far we have a background. We've cut around 2 birds or 1 bird, and then we've flipped the image, and then we've got these 2 birds in the background. We've got the surfer guy over here, and we've got a few more images to work with. Okay, let's go ahead and click on this tab here. This is the surfer guy. We can close him. Let's just make sure it's saved. And if because we saved it as a GIMP file, we can always come back and take this image and put it into a different picture. So always remember to, when you put some effort into something, remember to save the GIMP file. Yeah, remember to do that. Let's close this, and then let's go back to our images. Let's just see what we've got left. So we use this one. We've used the bird. We've got this lady lying down. We've got this jet ski people. Maybe we do the jet ski people, yeah? Let's go to File, Open, and we will select the images, and let's find these jet ski people. Here they are. Let's click Open, and then we've got the jet ski people, and let's just middle mouse click. Use the mouse wheel use the control key and the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and use the middle mouse button to pan. We just want to kind of cut around this picture. So this one's going to take a fair bit of time, but let's just do this together, right? So let's go to our free select tool. The scissor select tool is absolutely useless. I'll be honest with you. We can see it, and it kind of just makes junk basically, as far as I'm concerned. So maybe it does serve a purpose, but it definitely doesn't serve a purpose when you want to cut around a picture like this. To be honest, I've never used the tool. I've tried to use it a few times and it just doesn't do anything good for me. So we could use the foreground select tool. We could use the free select tool. There are other ways as well to select. We could use the path tool as well. Maybe we'll look at that maybe on another picture. But for now, we use the free select tool. I think this one is pretty good to use. And I'm going to go pretty quick now, right? I know that this thing is going to be way in the background somewhere, so I'm going to go around this pretty fast. and not waste too much of your time. And you know, we'll do this pretty quick. So we just go around here. It doesn't have to be an amazing selection. Remember, we can use the Erase tool afterwards to tidy things up. But we can quickly cut this thing out. And obviously, if you're doing like print artwork or something a bit more, you know, not for fun, then you want to spend a lot more time doing this stuff. The effort you put into this will result in the end result. It's probably worth zooming in here a bit, right? This guy don't look too happy, does he? What's going on, mate? He's alright. I'm sure he's having fun. Let's just get his hair in here. And that's it. We just keep selecting around this picture and use the middle mouse to pan around, right? So hold down that middle mouse button to move the canvas. There's a few different ways to do that as well, but that's just the easy way to do that. Hopefully I've done a pretty good job here, or a half decent one. We'll see when it's cut out at the end. So obviously spend as much time as you can doing this. It will result in a better cutout and selection. But normally when things are in the, when you're creating like images like this and stuff, when things are really far in the background, your cutouts don't need to be perfect, because after you zoom out and do all that stuff, or zoom out, all those imperfections kind of get washed away towards the end. So let's just make sure we do this selection half decent, and it will save a lot of tidying up later. The better the selection, the less work afterwards, right, to tidy it all up. Just when you do not so great selections, you just cause more work later to tidy it all up and clean it all up. It's a bit hard to see what's going on here, so zoom out a little bit. Let's just see, let's just move this one in a bit. And we're almost done, right? It's not that long. I know it's painful sitting there watching me do this, but hey, you gotta learn somehow. And this is or pay someone else to do it, you know? That's the other option. I'm pretty sure there's lots of people out there that would happily sit there and do this if you pay them for it. But let's learn how to do it ourselves, and then we gain some knowledge. And that's what we want. Look, we're almost there. It's a miracle. We're done. Oh, that wasn't fun, was it? Okay, so you can see the selection around the edge. Let's go to create a new layer first. In fact, what we should do is really edit, copy first, copy, then create the new layer. Right? Click that layer, go to edit, paste, and then click the anchor icon, and then hide this layer, and now we can see the selection. And now we just need to remove all of this water stuff in between here. Right? If we're going to do a job, let's do it right. So let's just quickly select everything in here. Let's just zoom in here a little bit. Let's grab this, what have we done here? I'm not sure how to undo mistakes like that. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to go back a step here. Let's just drag this one. Let's see what's going on here. Maybe I've balls that up. So I'm going to press escape and just restart that. If someone knows GIMP, and if you make a mistake on one of these little dots, how do you undo it? How do you go back? That's the key question. Like, how do you go back to this step here and get rid of this one? I'm sure there's a way of doing it. I will Google it up and I will come back and tell you at some point. Maybe we'll just do a tutorial just on this particular tool. I think you've got to be a bit patient, right? If you rush too fast, you'll make those mistakes. So just be a bit patient, that's all. And you'll get your result. So that's there. We just press Control and X. That removes that. And then we'll go to Select None. And then we just need to cut out this part and this part here. So let's just quickly do that. Let's drag, let's do Control. Let's press Escape. I don't like this selection. Let's go to Select None. Let's just do that again. And to be fair, we probably don't even need to cut around this stuff here. It's hardly going to be visible when we sort of zoom out, but let's just press Control X, cut that out, select None, and then we just got to do this little bit here. Let's click here. And then press Control X to cut that, and then let's press Select None. Let's hold down the Control key and zoom out. It's pretty good, right? It's not an amazing selection, but it's pretty good for our job. And let's go to File, Save As, and what is this? Jet ski, right? We're going to save this as original GIMP file, jet ski, and then click Save. And then we're going to let's see, we're going to click on this layer, press Control C to copy, or go to Edit, Copy, go back to our work here, and then we'll click New Layer, and then click Transparency here, click OK, and then press Control V to paste, and then anchor it down. Let's just click the Move tool and just move it. And if we hold down the Control key and zoom out, this is our content, and this is the original image size. So we want to then go to the rectangle select around this jet ski people, something like this. Go to layer and then crop to selection. Now our handles will be a lot easier to grab. So let's just go to Select None, and then we'll go to the scale tool. Let's click here, go to scale, click here. Let's scale these people down, and let's just scale it for now like this. Let's just work out where we want to put them. I want to put them like in the background here somewhere, right? Maybe just behind these rocks or something, like, or just coming from around here. Now let's try and think how we're going to do this. Really, what we'll do is grab the Move tool and move them like about, let's move them, let's see. Right, we could be lazy and just put them somewhere where there's not really much going on, but let's actually make my life difficult, and let's click the scale tool, scale it in a little bit more to around this sort of size, scale, and let's move them to about here. And I want to rotate them a little bit, kind of a bit more flat, right? So let's just click here and go to rotate, click on it. I'm just going to rotate them around here just slightly, so they're more like flat like this. Obviously that looks rubbish, so if we zoom out, they just look like they're floating in. And what we want to do is really, we want to take a bit of this rock, cut around it, and then place it in front of this skier, right? These jet ski people. So let's hide all of these. Well, let's keep this layer active. Let's hide these layers. Let's click on this layer here, this top one. Let's label it jet ski, and I'm going to reduce its opacity right down, just right down, right? So we can see, just about see them, right? And what we want to do is go to the background layer and duplicate it. Let's duplicate the background layer. So we've got two copies of this background layer. Let's hide the bottom one, click on this top one, and then we'll use our lasso tool. We're going to zoom in, and we can just about see the faint shadow of this jet ski. So I'm going to click on this rock, and just let's press escape. I'm going to click on the lasso tool, click on this background copy, and then just draw around the edge of this rock here, like this. I don't need all of it, just need some of it. Let's say something like this, right? And then I'm going to press Control C to copy. I'm going to go to the jet ski people, create a new layer above it, and then make that transparent and click OK, and then press Control V to paste and then anchor it down. So really, if I hide the background layer, let's hide this background, I've got this piece of rock here, right? And this background copy, I don't really need it anymore, so I can just right click on it and delete it, and then enable the original background layer, right? And then enable all of these, and then go to this jets, let's call this rock here. Let's see, let's call this, label it right, let's call it rock, and then enable this jet ski people and set the opacity all the way back up. Now they're behind the rock, right? And we could take that jet ski people and we can resize them if we want to resize them. As long as they kind of stay behind this rock, we're good to go. So we could click on the resize tool. Let's click resize, scale. Let's just scale them in a little bit. As long as they're sitting behind this rock, we're okay. So we click here and click scale. They'll still be sitting behind that rock because we made a selection and put it in front. So remember, when we're doing layers, if I take this rock and put them behind the jet ski people, it's no good to us. That rock has to sit above the jet ski people in the layer stack. We want it to be in the foreground, right? Hopefully that makes sense. It should. And what we will do now, let's just save our work first. So if we look at these jet ski people, they're kind of just floating on the water. There's no real splashing or nothing going on here, so it looks a little bit unrealistic. So what I want to do is just zoom out a little bit and just look at the picture, right? Normally I click on the background because that just gets rid of every selection. It's just, you can see things a bit clearer now. And I want to kind of put a little bit of water and waves and stuff like at the bottom of the boat, so it just doesn't look like it's just sitting there. It looks a bit rubbish, right? So what we'll do is just zoom in onto this jet ski people, and I'm going to click on the jet ski, and I'm going to right click and duplicate it, duplicate layer. And I'm going to click on the background and I'm going to right click and duplicate layer as well, right? And this background layer, I'm going to drag it all the way to the bottom, and the jet ski copy, I'm going to drag that all the way to the bottom here as well. And I'm going to hide them like this. The reason I'm doing this, you don't really need to do this in Photoshop, but in GIMP, when we apply effects and do certain things, it's called destructive, and a lot of stuff that we do in Photoshop is non-destructive, so we can undo them quite easily. But we want to retain these copies because these are like our original copies, think of it that way. And we hide them, so we don't really need to use them. But if we do something and we don't like it, then we don't lose that piece of work. We can still retain it because we've got the background and the jet ski as a copy, right? So now we can go and take the jet ski people and drag them down so they sit just above the background. And I want to merge these layers together because in order to use the clone tool, the jet ski people and the background need to be in a single image. Right now they're sitting in separate layers. So we click on the jet ski, right click on it, right click on the jet ski picture and click merge down here. It will take those two layers and place them into one single layer. So if I were to zoom right out, let's just zoom right out to here. And if I were to hide this background now, the jet ski people will get hidden as well. Can you see? No more jet ski people, right? Because they're sitting in the same layer. And the reason why we've got these copies is now we've still retained the jet ski people separately, right? So we can come back, and if we make some mistake or we don't like what we're doing, we've always retained our original layers. So remember to make backup copies of your layers, because if you do something to a layer and you don't like it, that's it, it's game over unless you can undo all of the steps, and you don't really want to go through that headache. Save yourself that headache, trust me, in GIMP anyway, right? So let's zoom into these jet ski people, and we want to use the clone tool basically. Okay, so what I want to do is zoom in. I've got the background layer selected here. I'm going to zoom right in onto this these people on this boat. You can see there's like this flat line here, and we just want to use like the clone tool to just make this look a little bit more realistic. So to do that, we'll click on the background layer. Let's go ahead and click on the left click here and click clone. And inside the clone tool, I'm going to select this brush here. It's called acrylic 0.05. You can select different brush and experiment, right? But I'm going to select this particular brush, and then the size I'm going to set it to around 37. It's going to be pretty small. Maybe you can see that here. It's 37. It's quite a small size. And then we've got the aspect ratio, angle, spacing I'm going to set to 25, 0 here, 100 hardness, and then the force is set to 81. So these are the settings that I'm going to use for this particular tool. I'm going to zoom right in. And really what I want to do is clone some of this water underneath and use that as like almost like splashing against the bottom of this bolt. So I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to left click around here somewhere. So holding down the control key and left clicking, this becomes the selection, right? And now I can use that as almost like a paintbrush. So now I can draw like some waves and sort of some imperfections into the bottom of this bolt, where it just doesn't look like it's just floating in thin air, right? Something a bit more random. So when we zoom out, you can kind of looks like a little bit of waves here. Now you can see it underneath the bolt, and that just, I know it's really picky, but it looks a little bit more realistic now, rather than it just being just kind of sitting flat there, right, on the surface. You can even zoom in a little bit more, hold down the control key and select something like the water over here, maybe over here, and then you can kind of draw in the color of the water here a little bit as well, just to make it look a little bit more realistic off of the front. Yeah, so that's how you use the clone tool. I know it's not really a part of this tutorial, but if we're going to make something, let's make it the best possible, right? So here's an example of using that clone tool. And remember, we merged the layers. So the idea here was for me to show you merging the layers. So when we merge, now the jet ski people are part of that background picture. They're kind of embedded into that background picture. But if we wanted to change that or move the jet ski people, we can just enable these two layers, right? And we can click on the jet ski people, click them, let's see, jet ski here, and we can just move them anywhere else we want. But if we hide those jet ski people and hide the background and enable this one, they're burnt into that layer. They're permanently there on this background. But the reason why we joined those layers together is that we wanted to take content from the background and then paint it onto the jet ski, and you can't do that unfortunately in GIMP, I don't believe, if the layers are separated. You can only do that when you merge the layers together. Okay, let's go ahead and click on this tab. Let's go to File, Save, make sure these jet ski people are saved so we can use that image later. We already cut around it, put that effort in. Let's save the work, right? Let's close this, and then let's go to File, Open, and we'll go back to our images, and then I think we've got let's see what else we've got in here. We've got a volleyball, right? Let's see this volleyball. So let's go ahead and click open on that one. And we've got the volleyball here. Now this is a spherical shape. It's a round circle. So it would make sense that we use the ellipse tool here. So we click that and then move towards the center of this ball, right? Towards the center point. And then hold down the left mouse button, hold down the shift key and the control key. We can draw out a circle, something quite close to the size of the ball, right? Something around here. This should be pretty good. Then we can use the move tool and then just use the arrow keys. Let's see, maybe we can't. Let's see if we can move this selection. In fact, in theory, we can move the actual background image to improve the selection. So we just want to get the image or the selection as round as possible, right around the edge of this ball. And then in theory, we should be able to just go to edit, copy, and then go to new layer, and then click transparency here, and then click OK, and then go to edit, paste. Let's see if that works, and then anchor it down. And now we've got our beach ball separated. Here it is. Let's click on that and then press edit, copy, or Control C, copy it, yeah, or Control C. Let's go back to our image. Let's go to the top layer here, and then we'll click a new layer, and we'll click transparency here, click OK, and then go to edit and paste, and then we should see the beach ball here, right? And what we want to do is go to select and let's see, in fact we need to anchor it down here first, anchor it down, and then we want to name this, let's just call it ball for now, and then we'll go to File, Save, and let's go to, let's see, we want to resize this thing, right? So let's click the move tool and let's just drag it first, and you can see like the ball really, again, the picture, the original image was quite big, so we just want to draw a selection around this ball to make our life easier. So let's click on here and select the rectangle select, and let's select around the ball like this, and then we'll go to image, we'll go to layer, crop to selection, and then click back on the move tool and then select none. We want to remove the selection. Now we can click on the picture and go to the scale tool, click on the ball, and we can scale it down to something sensible. Let's say around here should be pretty good. And we'll click the move tool and drag that to maybe around, I don't know, let's have the beach ball around here somewhere. Let's say it's around kind of, let's think about this. Maybe around here. I think that should be okay. It's kind of covering that rock, and I wanted to see that rock there. Let's have it. Let's see. Okay, maybe we'll place it around here. Okay, and let's just click on the background, and that ball just looks like maybe the ball is flying through the air, right? That's fine, but I kind of wanted the ball to be in the sand, if that makes sense. So we can learn what we've just, if we use our knowledge, now that we have that knowledge, we can kind of use the same technique that we use for the water, but for the sand instead. So really what we want to do is duplicate this ball. Just right click on it and duplicate it, and we've got a ball copy, and let's drag that down to the bottom. These are our copies, right, for later. The background, we're going to right click and duplicate that again as well, because we've got the background with the skiers on there. We're going to drag that right down to the very bottom, and we're going to retain that copy. Now we can do whatever we want with this copy, this new background, this old one, this old version, right? Because we've got copies here. Let's hide this background. Let's drag the ball and drag it so that it sits on top of the background here, just above, and then we can right click and merge it down. So now the ball and the jet ski people are all sitting on this background layer. That allows us to zoom in here onto this ball object, and then we can go back to our clone tool. Here it is, clone, and I think let's see if there's a better brush maybe. Let's see. Let's try one of these other ones. What is this one? This is acrylic 2. Maybe we'll try this one out. And we want to really make this brush a little bit smaller. It's a little bit too big. Something around this size. And then we can hold down the control key and click somewhere. Like click around here. And we're going to use that as kind of the selection, right? And we kind of want this ball to be buried in the sand like this. Let's zoom out. Now the ball looks like it's sitting in the sand rather than just floating in cyberspace, right? You can kind of like do a little bit more here. Just don't make it too unison. Make it a little bit rough around the edge, and that will kind of give that illusion of the ball sitting in the sand. Okay, let's go click on the move tool. Let's click back on our ball object. Let's go to File, Save As, and we didn't save this, right? So let's call this. Let's just call this ball, and save this. And we can close this layer down, and let's just middle mouse click and bring our canvas to the center. So we're making some good progress here, right? Not too bad. Quite happy with the progress so far. What else can we do? Let's see what else we've got left. I believe we've got one more picture. Let's save this. Let's go to open, and I think we've got one more image to work with. I'm not sure if we use it. Let's see what it is. This lady, right, lying on the beach. So let's just finish off. Let's click open. So we've got this lady here lying on the beach, and again, there's a couple of different ways to do the selection here. For this particular one, I think it will be easier to use the I don't know, let's have a little think about it. Okay, so to do the selection around this image, we've already used the lasso tool or the free select tool. We used the foreground select already. We could do a layer mask. Maybe I'll show you that. I've done actually that before in a previous tutorial, so I think maybe we use the path select tool here. So let's click on the path select tool. We'll click design here, and we're going to zoom in on this hand. So hold down the control key, use your mouse wheel to zoom in towards sort of this hand here. We're going to left click here once, right? And I'm going to show you a couple of things. So we're going to left click here, and we're going to left click here one more time. So we've clicked 3 times basically. We can press Control Z. Listen very carefully here. Control and Z will undo. So we can press Control Z once, Control Z or Z if you're in America, Control Z to undo, and then we can press Control Y once and twice to redo. Whatever you do, do not press any other key on your keyboard except for Control, hold down the Control key and Z, and hold down the Control key and Y. If you press Z on its own, for example, and imagine you've drawn these dots all around this whole image, and you get very close to the end and you press Z by accident, Z will take you to the zoom tool and you're going to lose your selection. Trust me, I've done it before. It's painful. Yeah. So make sure you click on the select tool, Control Z and Control Y. These are the only keys that you need to do. You can also go to undo, right? Control Z and Control Y here. You can use these tools as well. So let's go ahead and click here. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And we're just going to click. And we're using this particular tool for a reason. We've got kind of a rounded edge around his hat. We can click on these little dots and adjust them as we go along. But the closer or the more accurate, can you see when I clicked on this middle one, and if I click down here, it starts a new selection or a new path. We don't want that. So when you click on another element, let's say we click on this one and we adjust it, what you want to do is click on the very last one and then go and click here, and it will keep the selection moving this way, right? Or the path we call this a path, right? So let's keep clicking on this here, and we'll keep going around the edge of this arm, and we'll get down towards the bottom, and we'll see why this tool is useful around here. So let's zoom in on this elbow, and the elbow has a rounded edge. So I'm going to take this line, I'm going to draw an imaginary line going down to this position here. I'm going to left click, hold down the left mouse button, and I'm going to drag downwards in this sort of direction here, right? And then I'm going to left click around here to make the new line, and I'm just going to keep clicking around here. Now this bottom part I'm not too worried about. I'm just going to do a rough selection around here, just a little bit. You know, you have to be a bit sensible, but just do a rough selection, because I'm going to cover most of this when we move the picture across with sand. I'm going to cover it with sand to make it look a bit more realistic. So all of this is going to get covered with sand. We'll use the clone tool to do that when we move this image into this artwork up here, right? We'll use the clone tool to do that afterwards. So we don't have to be super accurate around here. It's just across the top here is where we have to be more accurate, and around these sort of edges here. So let's zoom in on this elbow. Let's click here, and let's click around here, and then we can draw a line in our minds up to around here. Left click and then draw out that rounded edge here like this, right? And then we can just continue to click around here, and then we can draw a line from here to around here. Left click and drag out like this, and then we can continue to click here. This is all pretty straight, right? There's not much roundness to it. To here, then we get to this hat. I'm not really going to cut around all of this stuff here. It's going to take too long and you're going to get bored, so I'm just going to do a rough sort of cut around it, just around this part here, and I'm not going to be too super accurate. I'm just going to cut all of that away. I don't want any of that. So let's click on this hat here. Let's click around here, and we start to get this curved edge, right? So I'm going to take a line from here, draw a dot around here, and then hold down the left mouse button and drag upwards to draw around a rounded edge. Then I'm going to take this dot and drag it to here. Then I'm going to take this line and draw another imaginary line going to around here. Left click and then drag upwards to draw a rounded edge. Then take this dot and drag it to around here. Let's move it down slightly to around here. And then take imaginary line. Imagine you're drawing a line. So you're kind of drawing around it to around here, this position, then left click and then drag and draw around that rounded edge, and then take this dot here and drag it to around here. We can even take this circle, click it and drag it up a little bit as well, just to improve that. And then we can click here, and I think that's going to be okay. We could draw a bit of a rounded edge here, left click and just draw a slightly rounded edge, and then we can left click here, this last dot, left click here, and then we can left click at the top. You can see you kind of got this curve shape. So let's take this handle and drag it over to here. Let's click on this one. Let's see, let's try and hit the, let's undo this. This is wrong, right? So let's press Control Z, hold down the Control key, Control Z here. And let's do Control Z till we get to this position. We've got this dot here. Let's click on it and just move it slightly, and we're just going to click here click here as well, because I want to create a straight edge here, like this. And then we're going to create another straight edge here, and we click on this hill, and then we can click around here and draw around the hill like here. And we take this dot and drag it down to around here, and then we can click here and click around here, and you can be as accurate as you want with this, right? So let's say we want to draw like around here, so let's click around here, and we can draw out like the roundness of this hill here. And then we can take this dot and drag it over to like here, and then just continue to do our selection. I'm going to speed this up a little bit because I know you're getting bored, but this is quite an important skill to learn in GIMP, right? To make selections with this path select tool, but it takes time. That's the thing, it all takes time. Time, effort and energy will result in a better selection. That's the bottom line. Obviously in Photoshop you can do stuff like this much quicker, but Photoshop costs money, GIMP is free, and it's still a very good piece of software, right? And GIMP 3 is going to be out probably fairly soon, and I've been playing around with a beta version of that, the next version of this GIMP software called version 3, and that is getting very good actually. They've actually done quite a lot of nice things in there. So that's for a different day and a different tutorial. For now, we're just going to keep left clicking and try and use small dots, right? Like not wide space dots. The smaller these dots, or the spacing between them, the more accurate your selection will look and be. And if you make a mistake, just drag in here. After you drag one of these dots, remember to click on the very last one to continue your selection. If you don't do that, you're going to have a few problems. So just remember to do that. And yeah, this was supposed to be a layers tutorial. I ended up showing you all of these selections, so there you go. But if we're going to do something, we might as well do it right, and at least you'll learn this skill as well, which is always a good thing. Selections in GIMP are a bit tricky compared to Photoshop, but remember, if you press Ctrl Z, hold down that Control key please, yeah? Pressing Z on its own, imagine if you went and pressed Z right now, all of these dots will get lost, literally all of them, yeah? If you press Z on its own or any other key, so just be careful, yeah, that you don't do that. Make sure you always press that Control key first if you want to undo one of these dots. And sometimes you don't need to undo them. Like if you click here, you don't need to press Control Z. Just click on the dot and you just drag it to where it should be. Yeah, so really Control Z, you don't really need to use that unless you're going to undo quite a lot of the dots going backwards. But if you make a mistake, you click here, just take that dot and drag it to where it should be. So really Control Z, you don't really need to do it. So see, when I click here, I clicked on this dot and then I clicked here. It's going to start a new selection. I don't want that, so I'm going to press Control Z very carefully, click on the last dot, this one, and then continue the selection, or the path. So let's just try and speed this up. Fortunately, when I speed it up, I make more mistakes. So let's just do this at the right pace, and hopefully you're following me. Pause the video, fast forward it if you're getting bored. You know, I'm not forcing you to watch all of this, so if you're getting bored, feel free to fast forward. And I'll put chapters anyway inside the YouTube description, so that if you want to skip to a certain part of this tutorial, then you can do that as well. Alright, so we're getting down to this hat again, the other side of it. Let's zoom out a little bit, this will be a bit easier. So let's take a line from here, draw all the way down to about here, left click, hold down the left mouse button, drag out that rounded edge, and then take this dot and drag it closer to the original dot over here. This is how I do it. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but this is how I do it. Then take that dot, draw a line in your mind down to around here, and then left click and drag out that rounded edge, and then take this dot and drag it all the way up close to this one, around here, and then let's see, be careful. Let's take that dot, draw a line down to around here, draw at that rounded edge, something like this. Take this dot, drag it to over here, and guess what? Click on this dot, click on it, the very first one you started with, and then click selection from path. And we've got a problem here. Look, it's gone and done some madness up here somewhere. So let's see, something ain't right. So let's press Ctrl Z to undo. Let's zoom in here. Let's see what's going on with these dots. Let's do selection to path. And let's see what it's doing here. Can you see there's a gap here? Right here? That's causing the problem. This gap between this dot and this dot here. So somehow we need to fix that. Let's press Ctrl Z. Let's click on this dot. And maybe we can click on this one here as well. And let's try and figure out how do we join them. Or maybe let's just in fact let's click on this. Let's left click out. Let's press Ctrl Z. Let's press Ctrl Z. Let's click on this one. Maybe we just need to click on this one. No, I want to try and join these together somehow. Maybe edit, control, move, alt. I want to join these two dots. Maybe I just overlap them and they'll join. Let's try that. Let's press Ctrl Z. Let's click on this one and drag it to here. I don't know. I don't think that's going to do what I want it to do. Should be a way to join them. So you probably won't have this problem, but let's try and fix it, because otherwise this ain't going to work. So let's see how we fix this. Interesting. Let's try this edit tool. In fact, okay, that will join it there, right? So if we click on the edit tool, and if we click on this dot and then click on this one, and then let's see, let's go back to design. Now they join together, yeah? So we have to select the edit tool, click on the one that we want to select, and then click on the other one, and that should join them together. So just be careful when you're doing these dots. I must have made a mistake there somewhere, clicking a bit too fast. Let's move back down to here. Let's click on this dot, click on it, and then let's click on this handle here, right? Click on this last handle, and then click here. And now let's do selection to path. Now it's done correctly. Now the selection is right. So now we have to be very careful. Let's go to edit, copy. Let's go to a new layer, create new layer, transparency, click OK, and then go to edit and paste. And then click the anchor icon to anchor it down. And let's just hide this bottom layer, and we can see the selection here looks good. So now we can click on the top one. And this selection is done. Once we click out of it, it's finished, right? I don't think there's a way to save a selection, not that I know of, or a path. Maybe there's a way to save the path, right? I can see the path in here. So export path, interesting. So let's just export it, and let's go into images, and let's just call it lady dash path dash 01. We can probably save the path, and if we ever want to have that path come back again, then maybe there's a way that we can just import it back in. I've not really played around with paths too much in GIMP, so I need to learn more about that and then share that knowledge with you. But we've got a transparent background for this particular picture. That's what we wanted. Let's just go to the move tool, and when we click on this move tool, in fact, let's go to file, save as, and we're just going to save this. I tried a few experiments before, so I'm just going to save this as lady3. I'm going to keep my experimental files 1 and 2, but I'm going to call this one lady3. This is the one we're doing right now. I was just testing some stuff. And when we click on the move tool, this selection is going to get removed, right? This path tool, now it's been removed. And now we just want to cut out this this here. We just want to cut around these little bits here. So we can use the lasso tool or the free select tool, and we can just click in here, and we're just going to click around here. This one doesn't need to be like super accurate. Let's just click here, here, and join it at the end, and then press Control X, Control and X, or edit cut here, Control X, that removes that. Go to select none, and then move to the other side, and then do the same on this side. Here, and then press Control X or edit cut here, and do select none, and then hold the Control key so you can zoom right out. And we want to make a copy of this. Let's click on that layer, press Control C to copy, or go to edit copy, and press Control S to save it. Let's save our work. Let's go back to this original artwork here, and we're going to click on the rock layer here and create a new layer. It's going to be transparent here, so click this button down here to create a new layer. Make sure it's transparency, click OK, and then press Control and V, or edit, paste, Control V. Right, now there's the picture of this lady, and we can click on this floating layer and then use the anchor to anchor it down. Let's just type in lady here, and we want to resize this, right? So let's go ahead and click on the scale tool, click on that picture, and we can just grab this handle and just scale it down to probably around this sort of size, should be okay. And we'll click the scale tool, so now we can scale it down. I think we'll just draw a new selection around it. So let's click the selection tool, and we'll draw a box around this picture. Let's say around this sort of size, right? Nice square box, something like this. And then we'll go to layer, crop to selection. So if we resize later again, we're just resizing it a little bit easier for us, making our life a little bit easier. Let's do select none. We can click on the scale tool, and then we can scale it down, and that's just a little bit easier to scale. And we can click on the middle box, to this little middle box here, to drag it in position. I want to kind of drag it around here, scale it down a bit more, maybe to about here. I think it's going to be good, somewhere around here, and we'll click scale. So that's where she's going to be laying down on the beach, but it kind of looks like she's just floating on the sand, which doesn't look very good. So we're going to take this lady picture layer, right click, and duplicate it. And we're going to drag that copy down to here underneath, and we're going to hide the ball and hide the lady layers, hide these ones, these copies. These are backups, right? And we're going to take the background layer, we're going to right click and duplicate that and drag that down as well. And this is going to be one of our backups. So we can take the lady and then drag her above the background, and we're going to merge it like we did before. So if I hide the background, let's see, what am I doing? Let's hide this background. Hide this background layer. You can see the ball will get removed from the picture as well because it's merged, and so will the jet ski. These jet ski people and the ball, because we use the clone tool to add some water and some sand here, it's merged to this background layer. So when we hide it, the ball and the the jet ski will get removed, but the guy and all these other things will stay there inside the image because there's separate layers above, right? There's separate layers. So we want to take the picture of the lady and merge her to this background so we can clone the sand and then draw some sand underneath her. So we will click on the layer of the lady, right click, and merge down. So now it's behaving as one layer. She is a part of that background picture now. We can zoom in to this, hold down the middle mouse button to pan across, hold down the control key to zoom in and out. We'll click on the clone tool, and I'm going to click on the brushes. I'm going to click this brush here, click acrylic free, and I'm going to set the size quite small. I don't know if you can see this size here, maybe you can see it. It's pretty small. And we're going to, you can see there's a lot more light on this side and it's much more darker on this side, so we have to be a bit smart in terms of what we're cloning. So I'm going to clone from around here, just underneath. where there's a bit of a light patch. So let's say around here. So I'm going to hold down the control key and click here, then let go of the control key. Let's zoom right in here. Let's zoom in a bit closer, and then we can start to use this sand to draw as if there was like a bit of sand, as if she's kind of buried a little bit in this sand, so it just doesn't look like a flat cut layer at the bottom here. Just, you can be a bit rough and ready with this, it doesn't have to be perfect. But if we zoom out a little bit, now it looks like the sand is kind of like she's actually sitting in the sand, right? That's kind of the objective of this. And you see I'm cloning directly below, not very close, but around here. So when I left click, you can see the clone below, right, or what we're cloning. So like around here, and we just want it to be a little bit random around here, right? I want it to be like too perfect, because sand is not perfect, is it? It's going to be a bit rough and ready. So let's see. Now it looks like she's sitting in the sand or laying in the sand a little bit, and you know, it looks a bit more realistic. I don't know what you think, but I think it's better than just having it floating, and same with the balloon and the board here and this jet ski. So let's go ahead and click File, Save. We can go back to the picture of this lady. Let's press Control S to save it and then close it. And let's click on this very bottom background layer. And we can kind of zoom in a little bit here, and we can see what we've done so far, right? So I think we've made good progress. Remember, we started with a plain background, and we started to mask these layers and these images on top. So we cut around the birds. We've got the birds there. We've got the jet ski guy. We've got this surfer dude. We've got this beach ball. We've got the picture of the lady. And now we can go and take anything else that we want. We could have a plane in the background if we wanted. You know how to do this now. I've shown you 3 different ways to cut around pictures, and how to bring them into here, and how to create new layers. So our layers are like they're like tracing paper, right? Think of it that way. So we can stack these layers however we want, and that will determine how you know, how these images composed together, you could say, is the best way to explain it. So let's try a few more small things, and then I think we're finished with this tutorial. Okay, so I want to duplicate this background layer, so I'm going to right click on it and duplicate it one more time. I'm going to take copy free and drag it right down to the bottom and then hide it. I'm going to click on this background layer. I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go to the light and shadow, and I'm going to click on the lens flare here, lens flare. So let's click on lens flare, and then we'll click on this little arrow icon here, and I'm going to click where the sun is over here, and I'm going to add this lens flare. Can you see this lens flare coming across the picture? So you can actually click on the drop down, and you can click different presets. As default, it's going to show kind of down here somewhere, I believe, but you can click on them, and you can see there's different styles of these lens flare. You can pick one that you like. I think probably, let's see, let's see what this one looks like. I think maybe this one here. Click on this tool, and you can just kind of, we should be able to click on it, and you can move and click and change where that lens flare is positioned, right? So I want it to be over where the sun is, like here. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. You can do split view, and that kind of splits it in between, and you can just about see a lens flare coming out here. If I do split view, you can see this half is with the lens flare, this half isn't. And when I undo it, you can kind of see the rainbow sort of colors coming through here. That's how you can go about adding a quick lens flare, and we're applying that to the background layer here. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is click on this lady copy, the copy of this lady. I'm going to right click on it and duplicate it, duplicate. And I'm going to take this layer and drag it above the background, and I'm going to call this lady, I'm going to rename the layer lady shadow. And I'm going to enable that layer, and I'm going to hide the background for the moment. And I'm going to take the eraser tool. I'm going to use the acrylic brush here, the same one that we used before, the same size. And I'm going to erase most of this picture. I'm going to get rid of most of it. Just get rid of all of this, don't want any of this. I'm going to keep some of it towards the bottom of the picture. So as I get closer to the bottom, I kind of want to keep some of this image here, right? Like around, not that much, maybe. Let's undo that, 1 minute. Let's zoom in here so we can do it a bit more accurately. This stuff we can get rid of. So I'm just using the eraser tool here, and we're just going to get rid of most of this. Alright, up to somewhere like around here. I'm going to keep maybe a bit less than that. Let's say right here. So this part down here I want to keep. Everything else I want to get rid of. Let's speed that up by clicking on here, clicking on the rounded brush tool, increase its size, and then we can just erase much quicker now, right? But we want to keep this stuff down here, this bottom piece here. I'm going to use that to create a shadow. Just like this. We just want to keep or retain like a piece like this. Something like this should be okay. Let's zoom out. Let's just middle mouse click here and just zoom in here. Let's click the move tool. Let's turn back on our background layer. And this layer sits right on top, can you see? Like this. And what we'll do is click on this layer. And what we'll do is let's hide the background layer for the moment. We'll click on that layer. Let's go to color. Let's go to levels, and we're going to take this handle on the left hand side. We're going to drag it all the way across to make it black like this, and then click OK. And then we will turn back on our background layer. Let's just save this, and we want to create a shadow out of this. So we'll click on the shadow layer here, the lady shadow. Let's go to tool, let's go to actually filter, blur, Gaussian blur. We're going to take the Gaussian blur and we're going to increase it to something like this, to around 11, or yeah, something around 11, right? We're going to blur it out to something like this, and let's see if we can, yeah, we'll leave the opacity all the way up like this, and then we'll click OK. And we'll click on that, click on the move tool, and then just use your arrow keys. Let's see, let's click on the shadow and move tool. You should be able to move it here. Just want to move it underneath a little bit like this. Like this. Normally, yeah, you can use the arrow keys as well, right? You don't want to move it too far. So we want to move it so it just sits underneath like this. So it kind of now looks like there's a shadow because the sunlight is coming from here. You expect to see a shadow underneath. Just make it look a bit more realistic. You can do the same with the ball as well, and a few other objects and stuff. You can, you can have an experiment, have a little bit of fun doing that. Okay, let's go ahead and save our work. Let's go to File, Save. Let's go to File, Export As, and we're going to export this as a JPEG file. So we select in here. Let's go to JPEG. And let's call this layer, I think it's called layer 1, right? So let's call this, let's give it a sensible name. Let's call this, yeah, layers 1 is fine. Let's export this. And we'll save it as 90% JPEG compression. So we've got layers 1. And what we'll do is go to File, Save As. And we're going to save it as a GIMP file, layers 2. And we're going to click on the background, go to Filter, and go to Lights and Shadows and click Bloom. And we're going to turn on the preview, and we can have this like bloom effect, and it kind of just, I don't know, it just, for me it just kind of adds something to the picture, but it's down to you whether you want to use this or not. You can turn down the strength and just bring up the bloom a little bit. It kind of just brightens up the whole image and everything looks just a little bit better. You can turn it off and turn it on. You can kind of see, you get a bit more lighting on the where the lights are. Everything just looks a bit more popped out and a bit more, but you do lose some detail in the clouds as well, you must remember that. But everything just looks a bit more brighter for me when you turn on the bloom, so I kind of like that. You can do a split view, so you can see like this side is what it looks like before and this is what it looks like now, and it kind of looks a bit more polished and it just looks a bit more brighter for me. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and we saved it as version 2 so that we can now go to File, Save, and we've retained our version 1 version, so we don't have a problem, right? We can always retain it, or we could have just duplicated that layer before applying that effect. That's another way to do it, I guess. So let's export as, and we'll export this as version 2 in here, and we just save this and export it. Let's export that and then click export. So we've got kind of 2 versions here. Let's close down this file and let's minimize this. If we open up our folder here, let's open this up and let's go back a directory, and we'll have 2 different GIMP files. So we've got the original one, which is this composition, and then we've got one with the bloom turned on, right? You can see kind of the difference. It looks a little bit washed out here. As soon as we turn on the bloom, it looks like a lot brighter. It looks very sunny in this picture. You can even tell the difference on the person, like it just makes things pop a little bit more, right? So I prefer this one. I think it looks a bit more better, but this is down to your own perception, right? So think about it. We started off with a background, with nothing, with just a background. We've managed to put the lady in here. We put the ball, put the pictures of the birds. We've got this water ski guy. We've got this surfer dude. And you could take any content now and use your imagination and combine lots of different images using GIMP layers. This is the important part of using GIMP layers. You could have a little crab here or something. You could have loads of different things in here, right? Entirely your choice now. You've got a lot of freedom. You could take like a mountain and put it in the background if you wanted to. You can do almost anything. This is the power of learning layers and how to create selections and remove backgrounds from other pictures and then bring them together. You even show you how to do little drop shadows here, like stuff like this. How to add a little bit of wave. I don't think we did anything with the surfer guy because the cut was quite clean, but we added a little bit of wave here to this jet ski, so it didn't look like it was just sitting there. And we placed it behind the rock. Remember, we created another rock, or we cut a bit of the rock out and placed it in front of the jet ski, so it's sitting in front of the jet ski. And then we've got the ball and then the sand that we did here as well. And then we took the birds and we flipped them over so they don't look like they're too like cut and paste job. Okay, let's go ahead and close this. I know this was one epic long tutorial and it was just meant to be about layers, but sometimes to explain things in GIMP we need to actually go and create something, and that's the only way that we're going to learn. So hopefully you learned a lot from this GIMP tutorial. If you liked it and you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Write in the comments, just tell me that if you want me to make other types of tutorials in GIMP, give me some suggestions in the comments and I'll go ahead and try and create something for you to teach you and to help you to understand how to use this software. That's the end of this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe and I look forward to seeing you on the next DCP web tutorial.